Today we will be looking at two horrifying caving stories that went horribly wrong. As always, viewer discretion is advised. On the evening of March 20th, 2002, two young men decided to explore a cave they had discovered near a suburban golf course in Knoxville, Tennessee, armed with nothing more than a rope and a flashlight. Only one of them would climb back out on his own. 10 Mile Pit is located in an unusual setting for a cave, right next to a golf course in a suburban neighborhood of Knoxville, Tennessee. The cave entrance had been gated by authorities specifically to prevent unauthorized access. But like many gated caves, determined people could sometimes find ways around the security measures. Joel Brooks was 24 years old, and Josh Allman was 23 in March 2002. A few days before this incident, the two friends had been exploring around the golf course area when they stumbled across the cave entrance. They found the gate open when they discovered it. On Wednesday evening, Brooks and Allman decided to return to 10 Mile Pit and explore the cave system beyond the entrance drop. They arrived at the golf course area and made their way to the cave entrance, carrying minimal equipment for their adventure. But here's the critical mistake that Brooks and Allman made. A mistake that left a lifetime trauma. They decided to explore a 75-foot vertical cave entrance with nothing more than a rope and a flashlight. No helmets, no climbing harnesses, no belay devices, no proper safety equipment whatsoever. They probably had no idea where to get the best equipment from. This entire tragedy could have been avoided if only they had the Recco app. It's a new app that automatically identifies the product inside videos, making shopping much more convenient and hassle-free. Speaking of which, we've got some exciting news to share. This month, we're giving away $200 cash to show our appreciation for our loyal viewers, all thanks to our partners at the Recco app. If you've ever wondered after watching our videos or outdoor adventure content, where do people even find that climbing gear, those harnesses, those headlamps, or those safety devices? It's usually impossible to track down. Most of what you see online isn't linked anywhere. That's why we partnered with Recco. It's a new app that makes videos instantly shoppable. You can tap products directly inside videos and see exactly where to get them. No searching, no guessing, just instant access to the exact equipment you need. All you've got to do is download Recco using the link in the description or pinned comment, and you'll automatically be entered to win a $200 cash prize. The winner will be announced next month. Good luck! Now let's get back to the story. The 10 Mile Pit was structured in 4 distinct sections, each presenting its own challenges. First, there was an initial free drop of 15 feet, 4.6 meters, a vertical section where you couldn't touch the walls and needed to either rappel on rope or free climb down. Second, there was a mud slope about 40 feet, 12 meters long, that was steep and slippery. Third, there was a 10-foot, 3-meter climb down to a ledge. And finally, there was a 20-foot, 6-meter drop to a stream at the bottom of the pit. Beyond this entrance pit, several thousand feet of cave passages extended into the limestone bedrock, an extensive system that would be fascinating to explore for anyone interested in caving. But you had to safely navigate that 75-foot entrance pit first, both on the way in and on the way out. The two men began their descent into 10 Mile Pit. They navigated the initial 15-foot free drop. They made their way down the 40-foot mud slope and reached the 10-foot climb down to the ledge and negotiated that section successfully. They were now at the top of the final 20-foot drop to the stream below, the last obstacle before they could access the horizontal cave passages that extended beyond the entrance pit. Josh Allman was near the top of this final climb when he lost his purchase on the rock. In climbing terms, losing purchase means losing your grip or foothold, the contact points between your body and the rock face that keep you attached to the wall. In a fraction of a second, Allman went from being in control of his descent to falling uncontrollably through the air. He tumbled down the slope, his body bouncing and rolling against the rock and mud, completely unable to arrest his fall or control his trajectory. Allman went over the final 20-foot drop and fell through the air before landing hard beside the stream at the bottom of the pit. The impact was brutal. His body hit the rocky floor with tremendous force. Brooks, who had been above or behind Allman during the descent, watched in horror as his friend fell. When the sound of Allman's body hitting the bottom echoed up through the pit, Brooks immediately knew this was serious. He called down to Allman, trying to assess his condition. Allman responded, which meant he was conscious and alive, but he was clearly badly injured. He told Brooks that he had hurt his shoulder and his head in the fall and couldn't climb back up. The pain and damage from the impact had left him unable to use his arms effectively enough to make the climb back up the rope. Brooks faced a terrible dilemma. His friend was injured at the bottom with perhaps a life-threatening injury, unable to climb out on his own. Brooks could either stay with Allman and try to help him, or he could climb out and get professional rescue assistance. But if he climbed down to help, would he be able to get back out himself? And if he stayed down there with Allman, would they both end up dead? Brooks made the decision to climb down to his friend and try to help him. He descended the rest of the way into the pit and found Allman in significant pain from his injuries. Brooks tried to help Allman climb by pulling him, supporting him, and doing whatever he could to assist his friend's ascent. But it quickly became clear that this wasn't going to work. Allman's shoulder injury was too severe for him to do the climbing movements, and the head injury made him unstable. Brooks chose to get help. He told Allman he was going to climb out and bring back a rescue team. Brooks began his solo ascent of the entrance pit. When he emerged from the cave entrance next to the golf course, he immediately ran across the fairway of the 18th hole toward the nearest house. Golfers and residents watched in surprise as this mud-covered young man came sprinting across the golf course, obviously in distress and urgently seeking help. Brooks reached a house and summoned emergency services, explaining that his friend was trapped at the bottom of a cave pit with serious injuries and couldn't climb out. The call went out to the Knox County Cave Rescue Team, specialists trained in technical rope rescue and cave extraction operations. The rescue team arrived at the scene and quickly assessed the situation. They had a patient at the bottom of a 75-foot entrance pit with a head and shoulder injury and possibly other trauma from a significant fall. They would need to descend into the pit, stabilize the patient, package him properly for a vertical lift, and haul him back to the surface. As the rescue operation got underway, a crowd began to gather. Golfers who had been playing the 18th hole stopped to watch. Residents from the nearby houses came out to see what was happening at the cave entrance next to their golf course. It wasn't every day that a technical cave rescue unfolded in a suburban neighborhood. The rescue team rigged their rope systems at the top of the pit, setting up proper anchors and establishing the mechanical advantage systems they would need to haul an incapacitated patient up 75 feet of vertical terrain. They descended into the pit with professional equipment and expertise, reaching Allman at the bottom beside the stream. The rescuers examined Allman and determined his injuries from his fall. They placed him on a backboard to stabilize his spine, then packaged him in a rescue litter, a specialized stretcher designed for vertical rescue operations. They secured him with straps and padding to prevent any additional injury during the hauling operation. Then came the challenging part, hauling Allman up through the 75-foot entrance pit. The rescue team used their mechanical advantage systems to slowly lift the litter, with team members stationed at various points along the route to guide the litter past obstacles and prevent it from snagging on rock features or getting wedged in narrow sections. The entire rescue operation took about 2 hours from the time the rescue team arrived until Allman was safely on the surface. When they finally brought him up out of the pit in front of the crowd of golfers and residents, he was immediately transported to a hospital for treatment of his head and shoulder injury and broken fingers. He was in severe medical care, but was alive. Authorities were less sympathetic to the duo's adventure. Trespassing charges were reportedly under consideration since the cave entrance was gated and the two men had no authorization to be there. Officials also stated that the cave gate would be repaired to prevent future unauthorized entries. The fact that Allman survived his fall was remarkably fortunate. Falls in caves can easily be fatal, and a 30-foot tumbling fall, ending with a 20-foot drop, could have resulted in much more serious injuries, including death. Friday, August 1st, 1980, began as another summer day in Chattooga County, Georgia. For Ron Langston, a 33-year-old certified scuba instructor, It represented an opportunity to explore one of the region's hidden underwater caves. The submerged cave system at the headwaters of Armuchee Creek had drawn him and his diving companions to its dark entrance, promising the thrill of discovery that drove cave explorers to venture into places few humans had ever seen. Langston carried credentials that should have signaled competence and safety awareness. He was certified with both the National Association of Underwater Instructors and the YMCA, organizations that emphasize proper training and adherence to safety protocols. As an instructor, he had presumably taught others about the dangers of diving and the importance of following established procedures. Yet, on this August afternoon, Langston would make a series of decisions that violated every principle of safe cave diving, decisions that would cost him his life. The cave entrance at Armuchee Creek presented the typical challenges of submerged cave systems in the southeastern United States. The water, fed by underground springs, maintained a constant cool temperature regardless of the summer heat above. Visibility varied depending on recent rainfall and sediment disturbance. The passages alternated between spacious chambers and constricted squeezes that tested both a diver's physical size and psychological comfort with confined spaces. Langston and his companions entered the water equipped with standard scuba gear, their tanks filled with compressed air. The initial penetration into the system proceeded normally as they followed whatever natural guideline the cave provided. At some point during their exploration, the group encountered a restriction, a tight place in the cave that would require careful navigation to pass through. These constrictions are common features in cave diving, places where the passage narrows dramatically, sometimes to openings barely large enough for a human body to squeeze through. Beyond this particular restriction, the cave apparently continued, tempting the explorers with the possibility of virgin passage and new discoveries. Instead of navigating the restriction with his full equipment, Langston made the inexplicable decision to remove his normal diving gear. He exchanged his primary tank, which would have contained sufficient air for the dive with appropriate reserves for emergencies, for a pony bottle, a small auxiliary tank, typically used only as an emergency backup. A pony bottle contains a fraction of the air supply in a standard scuba tank. The one Langston chose held approximately 10 minutes of breathing gas under normal conditions. 10 minutes. Not 10 minutes to explore and 10 minutes to return. 10 minutes total. In cave diving, where the rule of thirds dictates that divers should use 1/3 of their air going in, 1/3 coming out, and reserve 1/3 for emergencies, Langston's decision left him with perhaps 3 minutes of useful exploration time before he needed to turn back. The reason for this decision seemed to be the restriction itself. By removing his bulkier standard equipment and switching to the minimal profile of a pony bottle, Langston could more easily squeeze through the tight opening. What lay beyond apparently held such appeal that he was willing to sacrifice the safety margin provided by adequate air supply. He was way too excited for this exploration, perhaps. His restlessness said it all. Before his diving partners could properly prepare to follow, before they could attach a safety line to him that would allow them to track his location and potentially retrieve him in an emergency. Langston pushed through the restriction and continued into the cave beyond. He disappeared into the darkness alone, connected to his companions by nothing more than the weak beams of underwater lights that would quickly fade as distance and cave geometry intervened. His partners waited at the restriction, likely expecting Langston to return within minutes given his severely limited air supply. Minutes passed. The 10-minute mark came and went. Still no sign of Langston. The situation shifted from concerning to critical to desperate. As they realized their companion was not coming back, Langston convinced himself that 10 minutes was sufficient time for a quick look beyond the restriction. He had underestimated the distance or complexity of the passage beyond. He experienced target fixation, so focused on reaching his goal that he failed to properly consider the risks. Whatever his reasoning, now he was in trouble. The decision to leave a missing diver and surface is never made lightly. But Langston's partners faced an impossible situation. They could not fit through the restriction with their gear to search for him. Their own air supplies were depleting. Remaining underwater beyond their safety limits would only create additional victims. Eventually, with their own gas reserves dwindling, they were forced to make the agonizing decision to depart and notify authorities. They surfaced and immediately contacted emergency services. A Floyd County rescue unit arrived at the cave entrance at 7:30 p.m., approximately 6.5 hours after the group had initially entered the water. The rescue team conducted an initial search, but quickly recognized the limitations of their training and equipment. This was not a typical water rescue. It was a technical cave diving recovery that required specialized skills and equipment. The rescuers contacted experienced cave divers from Atlanta, summoning experts who regularly trained for exactly these scenarios. Cave diving recovery operations present unique challenges. The victim's location is unknown, visibility may be severely compromised, the cave environment is inherently dangerous, and the recovery divers must risk their own lives to retrieve someone who is almost certainly already deceased. The rescue team went inside and methodically kept searching for any signs. They made their way through the restriction, and when they finally located Langston's body, they found it wedged in a rock crack near the cave entrance. The discovery raised questions about what had happened in Langston's final minutes. Larry Blair, involved in the recovery efforts, speculated that Langston might have panicked when his air supply ran out and attempted to force himself through what he believed was the entrance to the cave. The body was wedged so tightly in the crack that recovery proved extremely difficult. The divers ultimately had to use a shovel to pry the corpse free from the rocks that gripped it. A grim task that underscored the violence of Langston's final struggle. He had apparently wedged himself into the restriction with such force, driven by panic and the desperate need for air, that his body became irrevocably stuck. The analysis of Langston's death revealed a cascade of failures in judgment, each compounding the danger of the previous decision. The absence of a safety line meant his partners had no way to track his location or retrieve him when he failed to return. The lack of a rigid time limit, or Langston's decision to ignore such a limit if it existed, meant he ventured beyond the point where his minimal air supply could support a return trip. Most critically, his decision to proceed alone, separated from his diving partners by a restriction they could not pass, violated the fundamental buddy system that serves as the foundation of diving safety. The tragedy revealed a troubling pattern in underwater cave fatalities. Langston possessed certifications from respected diving organizations. He had training, he understood, at least intellectually, the dangers of cave diving. Yet he created his own set of fatal circumstances through a series of conscious choices that violated basic safety principles. The phenomenon appeared repeatedly in cave diving accident reports. Experienced divers, people who should have known better, made spur-of-the-moment decisions driven by enthusiasm, curiosity, or overconfidence. Why would a certified instructor with two separate training organizations' credentials make such obviously dangerous choices? No one will know why.